All right, so we have one more story left before you come up and tell your story. And this story is called In Your Eyes, which goes with the theme. I'm going to use a smaller mic because I'm too tall. Just grab this one over here. All right. So, I remember it as the day the Indian lady came to visit. I was 4 and she was 14, and I stared up at her as a cat visits a queen. Her beauty was impeccable, her presence demanding. She stood in the threshold of the kitchen. The bare bones of that summer bungalow seemed an unlikely frame for such a vision, like seeing the Blessed Mother in a shabby grotto. 2 thin braids framed her face, the rest of her hair raven hung to her waist, her skin the beautiful shade of red mud. Awesome and inspiring and breathtaking, she stood me still as I wrestled with the strange emotions that ran amok in my mind and my body. It was the feeling that you get when you cross paths with somebody who you know is going to change your life forever. But I was only 4 at the time, so I had no realization of what this all meant. I knew that I felt scared, and I knew that I felt confused, and I knew that I felt intimidated, and I knew that I felt like I wanted to capture her. I wished that she was really, really small, that she would shrink down past my size, smaller still, to the size of a Barbie doll, so that I could play with her. When she saw me, she gasped, "Maureen, how big you are." How did she know me? And why would she say I was so big when I was really so small? My father squeezed in the doorway behind her like a bear waking from hibernation, scratching his head and rubbing the belly flesh that peeked beneath his t-shirt. "Look who's here, Maureen," he announced with a cheerful smile and sleepy eyes. I looked from my father to this Indian lady and back to my father again. Did he expect me to know her name? Did he expect me to know her? I loved guessing games except for when I had no idea of the answer. I studied her face for clues, her baby button nose, her strong cheekbones, her high forehead. She peered down at me, not giving anything away. And then she smiled. It was a smile that made me feel like I was watching the sunrise. It creeped in and got more and more brilliant as it spread across her face and made her skin shine and glow and her eyes twinkle. It was like watching a Christmas tree light up or birthday candles glow. And it was all so beautiful, it was almost unwatchable. And in the blinding brilliance, I heard my father's voice. "It's Mary. It's your sister. Don't you remember your sister?" My sister? How could I not remember my sister? And how could she be my sister? How could I be related to such a noble and magnificent creature? She was the oldest and I was the youngest, and so we sat like these 2 unlikely bookends, holding our 4 other sisters together. And years later I would contemplate this moment and try and rationalize how I could have not known my sister. She had left for a summer job to care for other people's children for months before. And before she left, maybe I wasn't fully aware of all the other cast of characters in our house. In my defense, there were an awful lot of them. I don't remember meeting my other sisters. They were always just there, like permanent structures on the landscape of my childhood. But that day, when Mary came home, there was my sister. And there was this huge celebration like none I'd ever seen before. But of course, again, I was only 4, so I had nothing to compare it to. But there were bottles of wine open and songs were sung, and we sat around her like she was a campfire. And she shared stories of the other family and the other children and all the funny and odd things they did. And she made different faces and she took on different voices and she seemed to glow with life. And I listened and leaned in, and I was sure that this woman, Mary, she was made of magic. When I was 7, Mary came home with a bottle of Pepsi to quench the thirst of my mother and her lady friend Angel, who lived across the street. Angel was a nurse, and my mom would spend hours sunning and sipping on our front stoop. Mary was sent to pour the soda, and I was sent out to the backyard to take in the laundry. On the yard line, I stood unable to dismantle this beautiful story that was playing out, dancing before me on the line in our yard. My mother's dresses swaying and swishing, my brother's jeans marching to a silent band. But what I did hear was her scream, like a murdered cat, odd and unexpected. It was shrill enough to call for help and sharp enough to warn you to stay away. I didn't run. I didn't want to see what had caused my sister. By the time I got to the kitchen, my mom was frantically pulling out drawers and dish towels and muttering words that were disconnected. Mary and Angel and Popeye. I followed her mad rash to the front stoop. Mary was seated and whimpering as Angel taped a Dixie cup to her right eye. And later we would learn from the doctor that this makeshift paper dome taped to her eye would be the very thing that saved my sister from her eye, but not her sight. That night my father kicked my mother out of bed for crying too much. She crawled across my body and tucked herself into the side of between me and the wall. And I listened to my mother's fears and her prayers as I pretended to sleep. Oh my God, my beautiful girl, she's so beautiful, she sobbed. And then she corrected herself. She's still beautiful, she's still beautiful. She kept repeating and repeating as if to convince herself. Mary would have several operations to repair the damage she experienced from the over-carbonated bottle of Pepsi. It was pressurized to the point that when she opened the top, it exploded with such force that the cap flew off, flipped over, and hit her right in the eye socket. But she let nothing slow her down, and she spent no time feeling sorry for herself. Though she'd lose the sight in her one eye, she won a court case with Pepsi, and like a wise woman, she never told the rest of us what that looked like in dollar bills. She also finished nursing school, and in the end, my mother was right. She remained beautiful. She was beautiful. This event did nothing to squelch her sparkle. She fiercely believed in all things unbelievable. As a young actress, I explained to her that while waiting tables, customers seemed to smirk whenever I told them that I was going to be an actress. Well, stop telling them you're going to be an actress, she told me. What do you mean? Well, tell them that you are an actress. I felt like I was lying, but I tried out her new script, and this completely turned the tables on my own confidence and conviction. When I was accepted into the program of American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, she was the one to pay the tuition and change the trajectory of my life. Not too many people that I knew got out of my neighborhood. I spent 20 years working as an actress in TV and film and commercials, and all of it, every last job, rested on the way that my sister saw me and on the way that she helped me to see myself. Even with only one good eye, she had a vision bigger for me than I could accept at times. With her one good eye, she saw possibilities that both mine were blind to. When the honeymoon with Hollywood was over and I was ready to shed my romance with Tinseltown, she was there again, holding open a door, a new chapter that I was so not ready for. Hey, Maureen, she said to me over the phone, I got a gig down here in Texas. They want you to do a motivational speech for 1,000 high school students and their teachers. But I'm not a motivational speaker, I told her. Well, you're not a motivational speaker yet, she corrected me. 1,000 swiftly turned into 8,000 audience members. What do you mean you got the number wrong, Mary? 8,000 is way more than 1,000. It's 8 times more. I told her through rattling voice and sweaty palms. Oh, what's a few more thousand, she joked. They're flying in first class and they're paying you well. But I've never done this before, I told her. So, this will be a great way to figure out if you like it or not. Figure out, you don't figure things out in front of 8,000 people. Don't worry, Maureen, I will be there with you. I know you can do it. And she was. She met me in the hotel lobby that day of the speech. She escorted me through a huge amphitheater that was 2 football fields wide. She sat in the front row, and when my speech was over, she was the first to leap to her feet and kick off a standing ovation, and I am sure that her cheering and enthusiasm was the sole thing that shamed 7,999 other people into standing up. I looked out at the audience, but all I could see was her. Right there, in the front row, hogging up all the light. The rest of the place was just black. It was nothing but my sister Mary. You know, I wish everybody had a sister Mary, or was a sister Mary to somebody. I think the world would be a lot better place. The little Indian lady, I heard her voice, "Maureen, you got so big." In her eyes, I was always so much bigger than I saw myself. In her eyes, I appeared so much better than I could ever think to be. And in my eyes, I'm still and forever blinded by her beauty and her brilliance and her unnerving ability to believe in impossible things. Thank you.
Maureen Muldoon. Yeah, they don't make them like her, I tell you what.